Hello. Hello. Oh, my head. Hello. Good morning. Good afternoon. I'm skipping the intro because I already had it going so that y'all could watch the beach while. Let me move myself down. So that y'all could watch the beach while I was getting stuff done. Let's see here. Let me get the stuff pulled up for the press conference. I'm gonna need a nap today. All right, let's see. Welcome, welcome. Come on in, take a seat. Okay. I need a nap. I see they've got the cameras in there. I know, couldn't you stare at that beach all day? I know, like, anytime y'all see me, like, looking over here, I'm always staring out the water.
Again, as a reminder to our audience as we wait for the press conference, break down what we have learned.
Thank you so much for being here. My name is Alibet Suarez. I'm the Communications Director for the City of Kissimmee. Chief Verrill will be providing remarks about the progress of the investigation. After that, she will open the floor for questions. We are not doing one-on-one interviews after the press conference. If you have any questions that are not related to this case, please send an email to kpdpio@kissimmee.gov. At the end of the press conference, you will receive a package with information about the case in English and Spanish. Now, I would like to introduce Chief Betty Holland.
We'll break down what we have learned after the press conference concludes.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today and allowing us to provide an update on our investigation into Madeline Soto's disappearance and death. Madeline was reported missing on Monday, February 26, 2024, just one day after her 13th birthday. Since then, our investigation has been relentless, fueled by the unwavering commitment to uncover the truth. During our forensic investigation, we uncovered disturbing evidence, graphic images, and videos depicting crimes being committed. It was during this examination that we learned we needed to act swiftly to remove the suspect, Stefan Stearns, from our streets. Despite the arrest, our investigation into her disappearance remained ongoing. We understand the importance of thoroughly exploring every lead and piece of evidence.
Hold on. Sorry. I'm having
appearance, and we turn to the public for help. During this time, Our investigators combed through a significant number of tips, and on March 1st, we received information placing Stern's vehicle in a rural area of St. Cloud, where ultimately Madeline's body was discovered. We are all deeply saddened by the outcome of Madeline's disappearance. The Kissimmee Police Department continues to piece together the timeline leading up to the events that occurred. I want to address some questions we are receiving from the media in everyone's effort to keep the community up to date on this tragedy. At this time, Stearns is facing a total of 60 charges related to our investigation.
Do you need
This
volume up
includes
higher?
sexual battery, lewd and lascivious molestation, and unlawful possession of materials depicting sexual performance by a child. These charges reflect the meticulous work of our law enforcement community. Our detectives also are working closely with the State's Attorney's Office for the 9th Judicial Circuit and the Medical Examiner's Office on the investigation. Death investigations are complex. Tasks like forensic analysis and thorough interviews are crucial and require careful attention. It is vital to address these misconceptions in the pursuit of justice while preserving the integrity to the case. During an investigation such as this one, we gather additional information from individuals close to the deceased. Each person interviewed is treated as involved until proven otherwise. This is a standard protocol to ensure all the facts are uncovered. During our investigation, we have interviewed many individuals. Each interview has been vital to our understanding of the case. We are reviewing all of the information we received and are following up on every lead.
Hold on, I can boost. Let me get out of this one.
Attention to detail and the diligence are the most important aspects of this investigation. We are committed to transparency and will provide updates when possible. Madeline's story has touched the hearts of many. Rest assured, our department is diligently working on the investigation, and while we appreciate the public's interest, we must prioritize the integrity of the investigation. We appreciate your support and understanding as we gather the facts. We intend to release additional information in the future, providing more details that we do not compromise the ongoing investigation. We vow to do everything in our power to ensure Madeline's memory is honored with justice. Our detectives are dedicated to pursuing every lead, uncovering every fact, and holding those responsible accountable. Now I will open it up for any questions.
Chief, I have a question. We know that you're working behind the scenes during this investigation to make sure everything is in order, but what can you tell us new today that we don't already know?
I don't have anything new that you don't already know, other than our detectives are working tirelessly day in and day out to ensure, all the facts are uncovered in this investigation.
Chief Holland, is the mother a suspect or a person of interest in this investigation? And also, with the videos that you uncovered, is there any evidence of the mother's involvement on any of these videos?
So everyone that was close to Madeline is considered suspect until we have proven otherwise.
Chief, how close are we able to know what actually happened to Madeline Soto?
Well, this is a very sensitive and, it's very intricate. We want to make sure that we uncover every single fact and all the evidence before, we don't want to put a timeline on it, basically, because the detectives are very meticulous in what they do, and we want to be sure that everything is uncovered that possibly can.
Chief, can you release any information about the manner in which Maddie died at this point?
No, ma'am, we are still waiting on the medical examiner's report.
Chief, do you believe Maddie was killed inside of the family's home or somewhere else?
We're still uncovering all of those details. I'm not going to speculate on that until we have the facts.
Chief, can you tell us if Stephen Stearns acted alone in all of this?
We're still uncovering all the evidence. I don't want to speculate whether he was or not. We will wait until the investigation, is completed to make that determination.
Has Stephen Stearns said he acted alone, or what has he said in interviews with you? Since we know he's in jail for these,
Yes.
What has he told you about other people's involvement, if any?
He has invoked his right to a lawyer, so we have not spoke with him.
Is
Chief,
there any time that you can expect an update for us? The public is asking every single day, and we understand that you're working on the investigation, but we would like to give them something.
I don't want to rush my detectives. I think it's paramount that they take their time. And, you know, Mr. Stearns is not going anywhere. You know, he's in jail and he's going to be there for a while. So my detectives, you know, I want them to be, you know, just look at every single detail and make sure, but I don't want to give a timeline at this point.
Chief, you mentioned you're working closely with the medical examiner. What does that relationship kind of look like, and what information are they able to release to you before that exam is complete?
So not really. I wouldn't say that they've released an information. We depend on the medical examiner's report for our report. So we're going to have to wait until they release that report.
Do you believe there are any additional victims?
No, it appears that this all was isolated to the home.
Chief,
I'm still trying to get a sense of things. Do you still feel like you have more questions than answers at this point?
I think our questions are being answered slowly but surely. You know, for the integrity of the investigation, we have to, you know, keep things close until such time as we hold those accountable for her death.
Chief, do you feel like this is taking longer than it should because Stearns is not speaking?
No, I just think that, you know, sometimes these investigations are just very lengthy. We know that he is in jail and he is not going anywhere. So the detectives are just making sure they cross the T's and dot their I's. You know, they want to put together, you know, a foolproof investigation.
Chief, is the mother and the family members being cooperative and answering questions? Have they lawyered up? And also the father of Madeline, who is not a Florida resident, is he a part of this investigation, or at least being asked questions?
We have interviewed, you know, all those family members that are close. Mother has cooperated. She did give us an interview. So there's, you know, no one is not cooperating other than Stearns.
We know that the crimes were committed in the home. We also have, you know, the date of birth of the person, but we have not confirmed that that is Madeline Soto. Would you be able to confirm that information for us?
Right. So all of the charges are with children under the age of 18, and, you know, they are protected. Their identity is protected under the law.
So it's gonna expect, it's been a couple of weeks, nobody's charged for the murder of Madeline. Nobody knows exactly what happened to Madeline. We can expect in the couple days, someone's gonna face charge for the murder of Madeline Soto?
When the detectives put their case together, you know, like I said before, they want to ensure their investigation is tight. We're working, you know, hand in hand with the state attorney's office to ensure, you know, every piece of evidence is revealed and uncovered. So I can't put a timeline on when that might be.
And Chief, with his cell phone, there's just one thing to understand here. So he originally went to the Orange County Sheriff's Office. At least that's what we understand. He gave the cell phone to the Orange County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office then found something on his phone which led to an arrest. In the arrest affidavit from Kissimmee PD, it says he offered his phone freely to Kissimmee PD. Can you kind of explain how that happened? Because I just have a tough time understanding how somebody who's been arrested for something on his phone freely gives a phone up again.
Well, I don't know the intricate details of, I do know that the Orange County Sheriff's Office and Kissimmee Police Department were working hand in hand, you know, during, you know, the actual disappearance investigation. So I don't want to speak on exactly how that happened, but it's not uncommon for us to ask someone if they want to, you know, give up their phone.
Chief, is there anything in particular that keeps you up at night regarding this case?
Well, a lot of things keep me up at night. You know, my takeaway from this is talk to your children, families, talk to your kids. Know that there are agencies out there, the abuse hotline, Help Now, you know, that people can report suspicion to. And I would encourage mothers and fathers to have those conversations with the kids and be aware.
Last question. Last question.
Had you guys investigated this family before?
Not for anything like this, no ma'am.
I'm sorry, can we just confirm how long that relationship was, the mother and the stepfather?
That is still being under investigation. We're trying to get the timeline for that.
Chief, I have one more question. This is a case that became really big out of nowhere for a lot of people, but what has the department learned through all of this so far?
Well, this was a very tragic event. You know, I think that like I said earlier, it's up to us, up to each family member to have those conversations with your kids and report any suspicion of abuse to your school resource officer, to an adult that's a trusted adult, to any police officer that's out there. So just report it and let the law enforcement community investigate. Okay. Thank you.
Oh. So yeah, not a whole lot of, nothing really new. For those who were saying that you weren't really familiar with this, Madeline Soto, what was it, February? Like towards the because it's been almost a month, right? Like, let me just look it up before I give the wrong date. And then all the people that are watching this, waiting for me to mess up, can clip it. Something, I think. Yeah, 26. Okay, so Madeline, 13-year-old Kissimmee girl who was reported missing February 26th in Orlando after she failed to attend class at her middle school. She was allegedly dropped off a few blocks away from her school by her mother's boyfriend, Stephen Stearns. Investigators later learned that Stearns had never dropped Madeline off near her school and that she was already dead the morning that she was reported missing, citing video evidence. Officials said Stearns allegedly moved her body in the morning hours. Her body was found later that week in rural Osceola County. Since the day she was reported missing, Kissimmee police said they have been diligently pursuing leads and gathering information and evidence to piece together the timeline leading up to her death. Stearns, who is named the prime suspect in Madeline's disappearance, was arrested that same week on sexual battery and child porn charges after detectives found disturbing images on his phone. State Attorney's Office later filed 60 new criminal charges against Stearns. A 36-page affidavit detailed all 60 counts of what Stearns is accused of, but they said the Fox News is choosing not to release the details listed in the affidavit due to their graphic nature. But in the charges, the 60 charges are as, God, this is so, oh God, my heart breaks. All right. 60 charges are as follows: 8 counts of sexual battery of a child. Hate this stuff with kids. Okay. 8 counts of sexual battery of a child under 12. 5 counts of sexual battery with a child aged 12 to 18. 7 counts of lewd and lascivious molestation. 40 counts of unlawful possession of materials depicting sexual performance by a child. 10 or more images. Put him under the jail. The document does not name a victim, but does not include a date range of how long Stearns has allegedly been in possession of graphic materials, or when the alleged abuse started, to June 19, 2019. That range tops out on February 26, 2024. the day that Madeline Soto was last seen. A previous affidavit from the Kissimmee Police Department said that Stearns performed a factory reset on his phone that day. While it remains unclear who the victim or victims are, if one of them, like, it's literally hurting my stomach. If one of them was Madeline Soto, she would have been 8 years old when the alleged crimes began. The affidavit said Stearns was in a position of familial or custodial authority when he allegedly committed a handful of sexual batteries. As of today, he has not been charged in her death. He is being held in the Osceola County Jail without bond. So, it's just so, look how pretty she is. Sweet girl. Oh God, it literally physically hurts my stomach. Oh, thank you, Mildred. Thank you. So he's awful. He has arraignment set for April 2nd. And then he has, I think an arraignment April 2nd, and then he has a hearing April 24th, and then trials May 13th. Oh, God, like, it's literally making my stomach feel sick. So, it's just awful. All right. Yeah, they've been trying to figure out like, it's hard to even get it together, Brandi. Yeah, I mean, it makes it hard to even talk about it. It's definitely like, I can't even talk. It's definitely one of those things. It's really I hate this stuff. Okay. All right. I can't spend too much more time on it. It's hard. Like, that stuff is not. I think it's a good idea for stuff like that. You know, it kind of, if you have there's so many so many red flags to watch for. And then also, you know, like predators can be outside the home too, of course. So there's, you know, if you have kids, different ways to monitor. It's so sad. All right. Get it together, Brandi. Alrighty. Back to our trial.
And that road.
They, how far behind are we?
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Caldwell, before the lunch break, we were talking generally about cell phone communications, and we're going to go into specific communications. Up on the screen is a chart, states Exhibit 24, that the jurors have seen many.
Oh. How many? I didn't think about that. Splitting it so I can do this separate. Let's see. Hold on, let me check something. Come on, come on. What are we, an hour behind? Yeah, we'll just stay on this trial. I'll download the video and clip the part from before this and for the press conference. I'll just do that when we're done, rather than having to start a new stream. All right, ready?
Many times before. There's an entry on the chart with your name followed by a telephone number, 603-509-8673. Sitting here today, do you remember whether that was your cell phone number at the beginning of 2017?
I couldn't honestly tell you.
Okay. Could reviewing prior testimony that you gave closer in time perhaps refresh your recollection?
Perhaps.
Counsel 5.1. So, Mr. Caldwell, I'm just going to ask you to read from 1 to 6, lines 1 to 6. So obviously there's a number in there. Does that jog your recollection at all?
It doesn't.
Okay. That being said, you gave sworn testimony in this matter, right?
I did.
And you provided a cell phone number at the time, right?
Yes.
And at the time that you gave the cell phone number, back then it was in your memory, right?
It was.
And you're being honest back then.
Of course.
Counsel, with that, I'm going to offer the number 603-509-8673, which is the number highlighted.
Yes.
Is there any objection? All right. That'll be admitted as substantive testimony.
Sitting here today, do you remember what cell phone numbers the defendant, Dean Smronk, and Christine Sullivan had back in 2017?
I do not.
So next on the screen is a calendar for the week beginning January 23rd, 2017. We're going to review numerous cell phone communications that occurred around and in this time period, which for the record are contained in State's Exhibit 17. You've reviewed the text messages before that we're going to be looking over.
I have.
Is it fair to say that sitting here today, some of the text communications from 7 years ago are more memorable than others? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Have you discussed these very same text messages that we're going to be going over in previous proceedings back in this case, closer to 2017?
I did.
The communications that we're going to be showing on the screen, all of which you reviewed before, do they accurately reflect who is exchanging the messages, the sender and the recipient?
They did. They do.
So with that in mind, let's review the text messages. The slide being shown is a series of 3 text messages from January 21st and 2 from January 22nd. I'm going to read those text messages first, Mr. Caldwell, and then I'm going to have some follow-up questions for you. So we're starting with Saturday, January 21st. You to Dean Smoronk, hey bro, you're going to come down. Then Dean Smoronk to you, yes, I'm pissed. I was up all night on 3 hours sleep and made the mistake of closing my eyes without operating something like a car, a piece of equipment, or a machine gun to keep me up, LOL. I'm getting dressed, I'm sorry, bro. And then a text message, you to Dean Smoronk, ha 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 ha, it's all good, bro. And then there's 2 from Sunday, January 22nd. The first is a text message from you to Dean Smoronk. Hey bro, thank you so much for coming down and hanging out with me and my brothers. It means a lot to me for you to come down when I know you are so busy, but truly I consider you a brother and proud to call you that. Love and respect, brother. And then Dean Smoronk sends you a text message. I was glad to be there, bro, quite the clan of good dudes. It was great to get a break from here, and the change of scene was very cool. Unfortunately, I came up the hill, helped Christine, and passed out when I sat down on the couch. Just woke up and think I'll get some more Z's in bed. Talk laters. Those text messages that I just reviewed, those are between you and Dean Smoronk?
They are.
In the first text message, you wrote, bro. What kind of term is bro? Hey, bro, you still coming down?
It's what I call people.
And is that a term that you use just with Dean Smoronk or with other people as well?
With other people as well.
Did you hear Dean Smoronk call people bro as well?
Yes.
So in the first text message, you asked whether Dean Smoronk was going to come down, and then the early morning text on the next day, you thanked him for coming down and hanging out with your brothers. Those portions of the text messages are highlighted in red. Where were you talking about in these text messages?
The clubhouse.
While you were selling drugs, were you a member of a motorcycle club?
I was.
And the clubhouse you're referring to is the motorcycle clubhouse?
It is.
Dean Smoronk, in the last text message on the screen, wrote that he was going to the hill to help Christine, highlighted in yellow, and then I'm pointing out with the clicker. What is the reference to hill?
The house up in Meterborough Road.
And that, again, is a term that you would refer to it as the hill?
It is.
So let's continue with January 22nd and turn to 3 text messages from later that same day. We have a text message from you to Dean Smoronk. Hey bro, just wanted to let you know I got a text from our friend again, and he said he couldn't come yesterday because he was feeling confused again. I'm starting to get real worried about him. Then a text from Dean Smoronk to you. Tough love. He's not said a thing to me. He's not being confused. He's being stupid, and I won't let it slide. And then you, a text to Dean Smoronk. Okay, bro. Who is the our friend being written about, which is highlighted in red, and what is the subject of the text message exchange between you?
All right, compound, you can break the question down into 2.
Sure. Who is the our friend that's being written about that's highlighted in red in your first text message here?
I'm talking about Tim.
And what is the subject of this text message exchange between you and Dean Smoronk about the defendant, Tim Verrill?
About him getting confused and...
Who told you that he was feeling confused again?
Tim did.
And what do you remember about the defendant telling you that he was feeling confused? What do you remember about that? If you do.
I mean, I just remember him telling me, he would tell me that he was getting confused, and that he would also tell me that he just needed to get some sleep.
Who are you starting to get real worried about, as you wrote in the first text message highlighted in yellow? I'm starting to get real worried about him. Who are you referring to?
Tim.
And again, why were you getting real worried about the defendant, Mr. Verrill?
Because he was, it says it in the text, because he's getting confused.
You were using drugs at this time, right?
I was.
You knew other people who were using drugs at this time, right?
I did.
And the defendant was using drugs at this time?
He was.
The defendant is who you were getting real worried about?
He was.
Continuing with text messages between you and Dean Smoronk, now we're going to Monday, January 23rd. Let me read through these text messages, Mr. Caldwell, as well as the ones on the next slide, and then I'm going to have some follow-up questions. So we start here, Dean Smoronk to you. Are you able to see me today to talk about my options? Then you to Dean Smoronk. Absolutely, brother. I have some running around to do this morning, but I should be there around noon, 1 p.m. Is that cool? Then Dean Smoronk to you. Yeah, me too. Got to go to town clerk. Then you to Dean Smoronk. You need a ride? Then again, you to Dean Smoronk. I'm in Rochester right now doing some more intel on that matter from Saturday after I can swing up and grab you. And then you to Dean Smoronk. I'm heading your way, bro.
It's at 1.25 because we're speed trialing.
Then Dean Smoronk to you. Okay, bro, I've gotten all stressed out and don't have a cool head, but I'm ready. Then think you can still call it dude that he rides with? And then you to Dean Smoronk. Yup. Followed by you to Dean Smoronk. No answer, bro. Only have Facebook Messenger. Sorry if I hear back and confirm the insect problem is now affecting the house. I will let you know. They usually will set up a web for the night if it is. And then we finish up. Dean Smoronk to you. Cool, cool. Mr. Caldwell, do you remember what Dean Smoronk was discussing with respect to his options from the previous slide that we saw and what he's writing about in these slides?
Talking about an individual that had beat up Christine and options on how we could, like, what we were going to do about it.
The individual, is that relating to the insect problem and setting up a web?
Overruled, go ahead.
It is.
Who was that person?
His nickname was Spider. So that's why I use that. His Mike Detroit.
But people knew him as Spider?
Spider Mike.
And that's what the reference to insect problem and web is?
It is.
Let's continue with January 23rd. The last text message ended at 7:03. This next exchange begins about 4 hours later, that same evening of the 23rd. Again, let me read them, and then I'm going to have some follow-up questions. And here we're starting, you to Dean Smoronk. Hey, bro, so I was told from my friend that they don't think he was at the spot, I thought. Sorry it wasn't better news. Also got a call from my brother, and he was pretty upset with the waiting and lack of communication. He said he, and then it follows another text message, you to Dean, wouldn't like to deal with him anymore. And then Dean Smoronk to you. Have you talked to Tim? And then you follow up, I have not yet. In the first text message, you refer to speaking with a friend as well as getting a call from your brother. With respect to your brother, is that an actual blood relative, or are you referring to somebody else?
Talking about somebody else.
Who was the subject of these several text messages between you and Dean Smoronk? The person who was not at the spot and who your brother did not want to deal with anymore?
The first one, that they don't think he was at the spot, talking about Spider. And then in the second one, it's you don't have it highlighted, but that's continuing on talking. It says also got a call from my brother. I'm talking about my brother, quote unquote, right? That wouldn't like to deal with Tim anymore.
So what I'm pointing out with the clicker,
Okay.
This is a conversation, a separate conversation. The first one is about Spider. The second, starting here, continuing to here, is about Tim.
So got a call from my brother. It wasn't talking about Tim. It was talking about somebody else. But wouldn't like to deal with him anymore. That's talking about Tim.
And what was that about?
About buying drugs off of him anymore.
And why wasn't the person wanting to deal with the defendant anymore?
Because he was not showing up on time, not taking his calls.
And when you say he wasn't showing up on time, not taking his calls, you're talking about Mr. Verrill, the defendant?
I am.
Continuing with the next two text messages from later that same night. Let me read them first. First is a lengthy text message, you to Dean Smoronk. I can, that's no problem. I feel bad, really, but I also know that he told him a time and he counted on that time because in turn he told others that same thing and he ran out of time. Don't mean to add stress onto you, brother. I will just explain to Tim and hope he understands. It's starting to freezing rain right now. Be careful if you plan on going out tonight at all. I will update you after I've spoken to him. Love and respect, my brother. And then a text message, Dean Smoronk to you. Okay, well, he didn't answer my comment a little while ago, and I'm starting to get things finished that were critical items. Then I'm going to pack and crash for a little while, but I'll be back in touch. Love and respect.
Like, all I can think about when he's reading these texts are, and I'm trying so hard to focus, but I am really tired, but all I can think about is Hulk Hogan. Like, yeah, brother.
Do these texts appear to be a continuation of the text conversation that you had with Dean Smoronk earlier that day about the defendant, Mr. Verrill?
It does.
And what do you mean when you wrote, I will just explain to Tim and hope he understands, highlighted in red? What was that a reference to?
I believe it was like picking up the money and doing the transaction for him.
So you were actually going to take his place because of the issues that he was having communicating with people and meeting with people?
Yes.
The text messages that we've been discussing up to this point are between you and Dean Smarong. Was the defendant another person with whom you had regular contact by cell phone, including text messages?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Sure. So the text messages that we've reviewed up to this point, it's between you and Dean Smarong, right?
Correct.
Was the defendant somebody who you also had regular text message communication with?
Yes.
So let me read this text message sent to the defendant on the evening of January 23rd, and then I'm going to have some follow-up questions for you. It's you to the defendant.
What happened? Oh.
Up on his toes.
The next several text messages occur the next day, January 24th. Let me read the first 4 on this slide. So we have a text message from Dean Smarong to you. In case you're up, I'm finally crashing for about 6 hours. And then the defendant to you, hey bro. And then you to the defendant, hey bro, sorry, and a huge argument with Cassie right now. Can I get at you in a few? And then the defendant to you, yeah. With respect to the text message sent to you at 1:05, hey bro, which is highlighted in red, is bro or brother a term that the defendant often used with you?
Yeah.
And would you use that term with him?
Yes.
In your response, you reference an argument you had with Cassie, highlighted in yellow. Again, who is Cassie, or who was Cassie at this point in time in your life?
At that point in time, she was my girlfriend.
Let's go on to the last text message from this slide, Dean Smarong to you. I'll read it first. Well, I got up on time, but I was haggard as hell, so I took a piss and laid back down, and CV said, fuck it. When I woke up, I was supposed to be leaving. Tim showed up, though, had breakfast with us about an hour ago, then he left. I mentioned the stuff with Rob, and he said he needs to get his schedule in order or something like that. Just keeping you in the loop. Love, respect. The Tim referenced by Dean Smarong, who is that?
Tim Verrill.
And what about the stuff with Rob and the defendant's schedule needing to be kept in order? Is that a continuation of the text messages from earlier and the defendant's issue and not meeting with buyers, basically?
Correct.
Continuing with text messages from the afternoon of January 24th, we have you to Mr. Verrill, the defendant, hey, sorry, hey, bro, sorry. And then the defendant to you, it's okay, I'm in Dover now. And then you to the defendant, shitty, were you able to get a hold of my brother yet today? Then the defendant to you, hasn't gotten back to me.
I think even the camera is like broed out. Was that commercial? The bro commercial? Hold on, now I gotta find it.
I just talking about like how it will be handled. I don't remember, to be honest.
Fair enough. Let's continue with January 24th. Text messages between you and Dean Smarong. Again.
Hold on, we need to pause for this because it's very important.
Check this out, bro. What's that, bro? Check this out, bro. What's that, bro, Heem? I switched to Geico and got more savings on car insurance. Professor, and more, like renter's insurance. More ways to save. Nice, Brotato Chip. That's not all protein shake. Geico has motorcycle and RV insurance, too. Ooh, that's a lot more. Oh, yeah. I'm all about more Teddy Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Teddy Roosevelt. If y'all don't start calling me Teddy Roosevelt from now on, y'all are fake friends.
Again, read them first. You to Dean Smarong. Okay, bro, so you're going to fly out later tonight or tomorrow. I can make up the hill in a little bit. I have some running around to do first. There really is not enough hours in a day. Ha, ha, ha. Thanks for keeping me in the loop, bro. It's appreciated. LR. Then Dean Smarong to you. Catching the 6 a.m. flight now. Then you to Dean Smarong, the last two. Right on, I will swing up then, after my errands, bro. Hey, bro, haven't forgot about you, just trying to handle a bunch of shit right now. So what is the exchange with you and Dean Smoronk regarding flying out and catching the 6 a.m. flight, which is highlighted in red in these text messages?
He was flying down to Florida.
Do you know why he was flying down to Florida?
I don't remember the specifics.
Do you recall if he was flying to Florida alone or if he was with anyone?
Objection, the audience question, he doesn't know.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Do you know if he was flying to Florida alone or with anyone?
He was flying alone.
What is the reference in the first text message to the hill, which is highlighted in yellow? Is that, again, your terminology for the Meterboro Road residents?
It is.
You end the first text message, LR. What is that?
Love and respect.
In the third text message, you wrote, I will swing up then, highlighted in green. You'd swing up where?
To the Meterboro house.
The next two slides are more text messages between your cell phone and the defendant on January 24th. I'm going to read the text messages on this slide and the next, and then I'll have follow-up questions. So we start, the defendant to you, hey bro, and you respond, hey bro. Then the defendant to you, how's it going? And the last two are from you to him. Honestly, pretty shitty right now, but hey, we can't have all good days. You in the area. Then the defendant to you, I could use a chat. Then the next two are you to the defendant. Yeah, come on by, bro. I'm cleaning out my basement right now and then gonna have dinner. Just sitting down for dinner, so should be free when you get here, bro. And then the defendant to you, OMW, on my way,
Correct.
And then you to the defendant, okay.
What is happening? Camera guy's not digging the bro.
A home.
And that home being 54 Central Street in Farmington that you referred to?
Correct.
Had the defendant been to your house before?
He had.
More than once?
Yes.
And for what reasons would the defendant visit your home?
To hang out. To sell drugs.
In the second message on the screen, the defendant wrote to you that he could use a chat. Did the defendant that Tuesday evening meet at your house?
He did.
And do you remember what the defendant talked to you about at your house that evening?
That was the conversation that I talked about earlier about him thinking I set up a camera in his house.
So that's when he accused you of spying on him?
Correct.
And again, from his language, from his demeanor, from how he was talking, did he sound serious when he was accusing you of spying on him?
He did sound serious.
We're going to complete text messages on January 24th with a late night exchange between you and Dean Smoronk. And for reference, on the left are the text messages between the two of you from earlier that day, in which you, in substance, relayed that you'd meet up with Dean Smoronk up at the hill, right?
Correct.
So let me read the remainder of the text messages on the right. Dean Smoronk to you, no worries, I'm rested and up until I travel at 3 a.m. Then there are two exchanges between Dean Smoronk and the defendant, and a call between the defendant and Dean Smorank's cell phone. And then the last two text messages between you and Dean Smoronk, you to Dean Smoronk. Heading your way, bro, in 5. Hey, bro, knock, no answer. You might have passed out. Have a safe flight, brother. Love and respect. Again, what's Dean Smorank's reference to travel at 3 a.m., which is highlighted in red?
Flying down to Florida.
And what is the reference in your two text messages at the bottom at 10:45 p.m. and 11:16 p.m., the last two that we see on the screen? Heading your way in 5, knock, no answer.
Heading to the house on Meterboro Road.
So you went there, you knocked, nobody answered, and you left?
Yes.
Did you have keys to the house in Meterboro Road?
I did not.
Next on the screen is State's Exhibit 32G. Do you recognize this area of the house?
I do.
Where is this area of the house generally, and where does the green door that's circled in red, where does this door lead to?
So that's in the back of the house, and it leads into the basement.
Back in the beginning of 2017, did that door have a lock?
It did.
And what kind of lock did it have?
It was like I think a punch lock, like a code or something.
Could you access the house using that lock?
I could not.
Why not?
Because I didn't have the code.
What about the defendant? Could he access the house using the lock?
He could.
The next series of text messages between you and Dean Smoronk occurs early the following morning. So now we're early in the morning on January 25th. Let me first read them, and then I will have some follow-up questions. So Dean Smoronk, to you, no fucking way. Oh man, I was in the shower. Did you come down back? Chris was here. Then you to Dean Smoronk. Yeah, I was knocking on the back door. I could head back up if you want. Would like to talk before you leave anyways. Then Dean Smoronk to you. Bro, I would really appreciate that. I'm trying to deal with a few loose ends here. And then you to Dean Smoronk. Okay, cool, heading up, bro. Dean Smoronk wrote that he was with Chris, highlighted in red in that first text message. Who did you understand that to mean?
Christine.
You indicated in substance to Dean Smoronk that you wanted to speak to him and that you'd return to the house. Did you go back to Meterboro Road that early Wednesday morning before he flew off to Florida?
I did.
And you talked about how you went up there initially, you knocked on the door, nobody answered, you left. What about this time? You go back up to the house, does anybody answer this time?
Yeah.
And who was at the house?
It was Dean and Christine.
Do you remember what you wanted to talk to Dean Smoronk about before he left for Florida?
I don't remember.
I need a glass of rosé.
I don't recall.
Fair enough. That Wednesday morning, did Dean Smoronk leave for his planned trip to Florida?
He did.
And how did he get to the airport from the house in Farmington?
How did he get to where?
Yep. How did he get from the house in Farmington to the airport?
Christine.
To fly off. Did you stay at the house when they left, or did you leave as well?
I left.
Was anyone in the house when the three of you, Dean Smoronk, yourself, and Christine Sullivan, left the house early that Wednesday morning, January 25th?
Not to my knowledge.
So returning to still video photos of video footage, who again are the two people who we see on these still photos?
Myself and Dean.
And the date indicated in these videos, January 25th, about 3:50 a.m.?
Correct.
And returning to States Exhibit 34, who again is the person circled in blue in these surveillance photos?
Dean.
Over the following days, after Dean Smoronk left early that Wednesday morning for Florida, did you continue to have text message exchanges and phone calls with him while he was in Florida?
Yes.
In those following days, did you ever see Dean Smoronk in New Hampshire?
No.
When did you next see Dean Smoronk after you saw him leave for the airport that early Wednesday morning to fly to Florida?
When I picked him up at the airport.
And that was several days later, an event that we're going to talk about later?
Correct.
So let's return to cell phone communications. And this next slide has text message exchange between you and the defendant later on January 25th. And the next several slides will continue this same day. Let me read the ones on this slide. They begin at 12:58 p.m., you to the defendant, hey bro, how you feeling today? And then the defendant to you, better. Then you to the defendant, I think you should still get checked out, bro, I'm really worried about you. And then the defendant to you, I was tired last night, I've been trying to turn things around in my life. I was certain I forgot to do something yesterday, but I didn't get some good sleep last night, now I'm chilling with my father. And then you to the defendant, okay, bro. Focusing.
Bro. They're having camera issues.
That more?
A doctor.
What kind of a doctor?
Like a psychiatrist or something to check out his head.
We're going to continue with text messages that same afternoon of January 25th. These are continuing text messages between you and the defendant. First is the defendant to you, what are you up to? And then you to the defendant, waiting for Paul to help me fix the door downstairs. The window broke out of it, so I think going to head to Newington to get a new one. Then the defendant to you, I got to run to the ranch soon. And then you to the defendant, right on. What were you writing the defendant about in that second text message with respect to Paul and going to Newington?
I was, my basement door, exterior basement door, the window broke, and that's my cousin Paul.
We're going to be seeing later on in text messages there's drug code, right?
Correct.
Now, this is not drug code, this is just your real life, right?
Yes.
The defendant wrote to you that he wanted to run to the ranch soon, highlighted in red. What did you understand that term ranch to be a reference to?
Meterboro Road.
What was the defendant going to the house to do based on conversations that he had with you? If you remember.
I don't remember. Pick up drugs, I'm assuming.
Well, we can't assume, but let me re-ask it, and I'll ask this. Would the defendant typically go to the house to pick up drugs for sale?
Yes.
Continuing text messages between you and the defendant on January 25th. Again, let me read them. First, the defendant to you is Chris up there, and then you to the defendant in the next two text messages. She should be. I know that she brought him to the airport this morning. And then the defendant to you, I figured. And the last two are different conversants, so I will not ask you about them. The first text message, who did you understand the defendant's reference to Chris and up there to be? Is Chris up there?
Oh, Christine. Sorry, I was looking at the highlighted. I got confused.
I'll get to the highlighted in a second, but the first one is Chris up there. So
yeah, talking about Christine.
And Meterboro Road?
Meterboro Road, yes.
What about that statement that's highlighted in red? She brought him to the airport. Is that a reference to the trip to the Boston airport to Florida?
It is.
The next series of text messages from January 25th, later in the afternoon, we're going back to you and Dean Smoronk. Let me read them and follow up with some questions. And actually, before I read these, Mr. Cole, we've seen a lot of text messages between you and Dean Smoronk and you and the defendant. We haven't seen any between you and Christine Sullivan. Was that kind of the nature of your relationship at the time?
Yes.
So we have you to Dean Smoronk. Hey, bro, just had my meeting about those plowing accounts. Was wondering when we would be able to start hiring on that. He was looking for 16 untrained temps that we bill net 30. We would pay them $1,500 a week. And then there's an auto reply from Dean Smooronk's cell phone, followed by a text message from him. Perfect. I'll work on that today and have an answer for you in a matter of hours. Then you to Dean Smoronk. Awesome, bro. Hope the weather is nice. L&R. Then Dean Smoronk's last two text messages to you. A hustle here and a hustle there. Life on the wild side. L&R. So explain this text message that you sent to him about plowing accounts and untrained temps.
I was talking about cocaine and 16 untrained, so 16 ounces of uncut cocaine.
Wow. So this text message was a coded text message between you and Dean Smoronk about drug sales?
Yes.
That same afternoon of the 25th, right after the exchange that we just reviewed, there's this exchange between you and Dean Smoronk. We have Dean Smoronk to you. Did Tim go to the doctor? And then you to Dean Smoronk. No, I told him I wanted to bring him, and he said he had a good night's sleep, so he didn't want to go, but that was through text because he never came by this morning. Oops, sorry. Dean Smooronk's question to you, did Tim go to the doctor? Is that a continuation of text messages that we've seen up to this point about some concerns about the defendant, Mr. Verrill?
It is.
From what you remember, was Dean Smoronk also trying to get the defendant to consult with a doctor about his mental issues?
Yes.
With respect to your response to Dean Smoronk asking whether or not the defendant went to a doctor, no, I told him I wanted to bring him, and he said he had a good night's sleep, so he didn't want to go. Was the defendant supposed to meet with you that morning, if you remember? If you remember.
I don't remember. Yeah, I can't assume, right? Yeah, I don't remember.
Fair enough. Let's continue with text messages from Wednesday, January 25th. We have more between you and Dean Smoronk. First is you to Dean Smoronk. Hey, bro, sorry to bother you. I was just wondering what I should tell the accounts on staffing. They're chomping at the bit to fill these accounts. Heard we might be getting another storm soon. I guess they are way understaffed. The contractor they had before warrants union wages, so they are at a standstill until I let them know when we would have guys available. I know you have a lot going on, and I'm sorry to be a pain, brother. And then Dean Smoronk to you. First is an auto reply, and then he responds Tuesday. You to Dean Smoronk. Awesome, thanks, bro. And then him to you, NP. No problem, I take it?
No problem, yes.
Your lengthy text message at the top, is this more code about a drug transaction?
It is.
Who was involved in the drug deal that you were discussing with Dean Smoronk and code in this text message and in the text message that we saw before?
This guy named Kurt.
Excuse me?
This guy named Kurt.
Do you recall if the defendant and Ms. Sullivan was also involved in this deal? If you remember.
I don't remember. I don't think so.
He didn't Brodus.
You talked about during this period before lunch, you talked about the relationship between Dean Smoronk and Christine Sullivan. What about the relationship between Christine Sullivan and the defendant, Mr. Verrill? Was there friction in that relationship too that you remember?
Between Christine and Tim?
Yeah.
Yes.
And what was that frustration or situation, relationship?
Just money being owed, I believe.
And who owed who money, from what you understood?
Tim owed Christine money.
Let's turn to the last of the text messages from January 25th. And those text messages are that evening between you and Dean Smoronk. They begin at 9:28 p.m., Dean Smoronk to you. I take it there was a good impression made, and then you to Dean Smoronk. Very, my brother, very. And then Dean Smoronk to you. I'm committing each and every resource to this, and it's going to be one hell of a trick, brother. And then you to Dean Smoronk. I think it's going to be a hell of a year, bro. Do you remember what you and Dean Smoronk were discussing in these text messages?
The cocaine deal.
And that's the deal that was referred to in coded messages that you sent to him at least twice before?
Yes.
So now let's turn to the next day, and we're on Thursday, January 26th. We're going to be going over 10 separate slides of text messages for this day. And they start with 4 slides showing a series of text messages between you and the defendant beginning that morning of the 26th and continuing into that afternoon. So I'm going to first read them all, and then I'm going to have some follow-up questions for you, okay? So they start with you at 10:23 a.m., you to the defendant. Hey, bro, what your email? And then, do you have a Google Calendar? The next 2, the defendant to you. Yo, Jimbo, 451 at Gmail. Then the next 2, you to the defendant. Thanks, bro. I'm going to set up that Google Calendar and let me know if you receive anything on it. Name of calendar is Hill Ranch Installations. You to the defendant. Let me know if you can see it, bro. The next 2, the defendant to you. Not yet. Where can I add it? And then the last 2 are you to the defendant. Google Calendar app. The first 3 on this page, the defendant to you. Got it last time. I checked. It wasn't there. Got it. I had the calendar on my phone. Needed to app from store. Then you to the defendant. Cool, so I figure what we would do is you add something, all your invoice numbers will start with 01, mine 02. The defendant to you, cool. Then you, in description, we put what needs to be installed, if it is going to be billed net 30 or if paid for at end of job. Then when invoice is paid, we put another event up with invoice, paid in full or partial. And if partial description, how much was paid. I picked the color blue, and you can change your color to something also. Just all installs will be clicked on as an all-day event, and we will just add what needs to be done. Do you think will work? Is it too confusing? Him to you, not at all. I like it a lot. Last 2, you to Mr. Verrill, the defendant. Question, also, are you going to the Hill today? I need to get up there at some point. I'm going to be leaving soon for a haircut, though no probs. Need to go around 8-ish. Would I call up there, or would I need you? Okay, awesome. I will delete this one, get a hold of Florida, and see what his email is, and also get Christine so I can put it all together. So what is the subject of this lengthy text message exchange between you and the defendant on the morning and afternoon regarding Google Calendar and what you wrote to the defendant?
So I was trying to develop a system where when we did drug transactions, everybody would be able to see, Dean and Christine mainly, would be able to see what was going out, how much money was getting paid, and then if money was being owed.
So the references to Google Calendar and whatnot, they're all drug-related, drug sale related.
They are.
In your last text message in this exchange with the defendant, you made references to getting email addresses from Florida and Christine, highlighted in red at the bottom. Who were you referring to, Florida and Christine?
Florida would be Dean, and then Christine's Christine.
In the preceding text message, you asked the defendant whether he was going to the Hill, and you relayed that you needed to get up there, which is highlighted in yellow. The Hill, again, that's a reference to the Meterboro Road residence?
Correct.
And do you remember why you were planning to go to the Meterboro Roadhouse this particular day?
To get drugs.
In that same text message you wrote, would I call up there or would I need you, which is highlighted in green. Why would you need the defendant?
To be able to get the drugs.
And what about to get into the house?
Yes.
That same text message about going up to the Hill is on the left for a reference.
Mm-hmm.
Continuing with text messages between the defendant and you on January 16th. I'll first read them. The defendant to you, I don't know what Dean want to do, but Chris is up there and she knows more than me right now. Then you to the defendant, right on, bro. The defendant to you, I'll meet you there if you'd like. And then you to the defendant, cool, that would be awesome. With respect to the first message, the defendant's statement, Chris is up there. Who and where did you take the defendant to mean?
Christine, up at Meterboro Road.
What about the defendant's statement that Ms. Sullivan knew more than he did? Do you remember what the defendant was talking about?
Just about the business.
And that business being selling drugs?
Correct.
The last text message here has a timestamp of 3:22 p.m., and that's when the next series of text messages start. You to the defendant, around 8 tonight work for you. The defendant to you, yes. You to the defendant, cool, I will text you when I'm ready, bro, thanks. The defendant to you, no problem. And then you to the defendant, do me a favor, bro, and set up an event and see if I can see it. Starting with the last first, do me a favor, set up an event and see if I can see it. Does that refer back to the Google Calendar, drug calendar that you were preparing?
It is.
The first text message, you to the defendant, around 8 o'clock that evening working for him. What's that a reference to?
Going up there?
That's to Meterboro Road?
Correct.
Moving to additional cell phone record entries from Thursday, January 26. First, we have a call, Dean Smoronk, to you. And then 3 down, we have a call, you to the defendant. And then a text message, you to the defendant. Just to confirm, I was saying, could you pick me up, bring me with you? They need it before 5, and as much as you can bring to donate, that would help me out a lot. And then the defendant to you, yup, NP, no problem. Do you remember receiving a call from Dean Smoronk on the afternoon of January 26th?
I do.
And what was that call about?
Getting money to Christine.
For what?
For drugs that we bought.
Your call to the defendant at about 4 p.m. You reference it in the text message that you just sent a few minutes later?
I do.
Just to confirm, I was saying, could you pick me up, bring me with you? Is that a reference to the call that you had just made to him?
It is.
What was the topic of that text message and that brief call between you and the
To
defendant?
pick me up and bring me with him to go see Christine to pay up, to give her money.
And again, the money was for what?
Drugs.
And both you and the defendant were going to supply money for this?
Correct.
Turning to additional cell phone communications from January 26th, there's a series between you and Dean Smoronk. You to Dean Smoronk, hey, just a heads up, talked with Tim. He should be at my place in the next 10 minutes. Then we are running up to the hill. And then Dean Smoronk to you, there's an auto reply, and then a call that lasts about 72 seconds. And then the last one is a call with other conversants. Turning to your text message, Tim should be at my place. Again, that's a reference to the defendant, Mr. Verrill.
Yes.
And we're running up to the hill. That's, again, a reference to Meterboro Road.
Correct.
Do you remember why you sent that text message to Dean Smoronk?
Because we were, to tell him that we were going to meet Christine.
And did the defendant pick you up soon after this exchange, this text message exchange?
He did.
The call from Dean Smoronk after you sent him that text message about you and the defendant going up to the Meterboro Road address. Do you remember what Dean Smorank's call to you was about?
To tell me to get a hold of Christine.
And that call was followed by a call from your cell phone to Ms. Sullivan's cell phone. Did you make that call?
I did.
And do you remember why generally you were trying to get a hold of Ms.
To
Sullivan?
see where she was.
Do you remember if you actually spoke to her?
I don't remember.
At some point in time, did you and the defendant arrange to meet Ms. Sullivan somewhere?
Yes.
And where did you arrange to meet with her?
We ended up meeting at the Holy Rosary Credit Union in Farmington.
And in terms of how you were able to do that, seems like you don't have a recollection. It could have been your call with Ms. Sullivan. It
Yeah,
could have been the call with Mr. Smoronk.
Yeah, she must have told me that she was at.
And what was the purpose of the meeting between you and the defendant and Ms. Sullivan?
To give her money for drugs.
And did you and the defendant drive to the bank together?
We did.
And what do you remember happening at the bank?
At one point, I saw her car parked, and I thought she was in the passenger seat. So I
Well, let me
jumped
stop you
up.
there.
Yep.
Why'd you think she was in the passenger seat?
Because I saw somebody sitting in the passenger seat.
And was this person's back to you? You parked behind them?
I don't remember where we were parked.
Okay. Fair enough. Sorry to interrupt. Continue, please.
And so I got out, and I opened the driver's side door, and I remember, I think I was trying to get in, but I recognized that it wasn't Christine sitting there.
Did you recognize who it was sitting there?
I did not.
Did you later come to find out who that was?
I did.
And who was it?
That was Jenna.
Did you ever remember meeting Ms. Pellegrini before that chance encounter?
No.
Do you remember either Ms. Sullivan or Dean Smoronk ever mentioning Ms. Pellegrini before you bumped into her outside the bank?
No.
So let's turn to additional text messages from January 26th. You to Ms. Sullivan's cell phone, want me to wait outside, and then her cell phone to you, I have her phone, LOL, and then your cell phone to Dean Smoronk, all set, brother. Your text message to Ms. Sullivan, want me to wait outside. Explain that for us, please.
Because she was in the bank. So I was wondering if she wanted us to wait for her to get out of the bank.
What about the reply from Ms. Sullivan's cell phone? I have her phone, LOL.
That was Jenna.
So Ms. Pellegrini actually had Ms. Sullivan's cell phone at the time?
She did.
Shortly after sending and receiving those text messages, did you see Ms. Sullivan outside the bank?
I did.
And what do you remember happening outside the bank?
I remember coming up to her and hugging her and putting money into her purse as I was hugging her.
What about the defendant?
He did, I believe he did the same thing.
What happened? I did it again.
Another person being with Ms. Sullivan at the bank?
At that time, is that what you're asking?
Yes, at that time.
I don't remember.
From conversations with the defendant, either that time or later on, did he know or appear to know the woman who was with Ms. Sullivan?
I don't remember.
Did you ever see Christine Sullivan again after seeing her outside the bank that late Thursday afternoon, January 26th?
I did not.
Did you receive any phone calls or text messages from Ms. Sullivan on her cell phone after last seeing her outside the bank that Thursday afternoon?
I did not.
Did you receive any communication from Ms. Sullivan of any kind, email, Facebook, anything, after you last saw her that Thursday afternoon?
I did not.
Do you remember where you and the defendant went after meeting up with Ms. Sullivan outside the bank to have this exchange of money for a drug purchase?
To my house.
Let's now turn to text messages from the evening of January 26th. They begin at 8:14 p.m. The first
Stayed outside the bank so he could play Pokemon.
Where was he and what is he texting about? Latching the door, hopping out a couple of times.
He was at my house and talking about the door in my kitchen. And he's talking about the dog that Cassie and I were dog sitting, who was a pain in the butt and kept running out.
So this is not drug code. This is, again, real life.
Correct.
Were you at the house at the time or you were elsewhere?
I was in the house. I was just in the basement.
The text message that the defendant sent to you at 10:38 p.m. on January 26th, I'm heading up the hill, highlighted in red. Where was the defendant going at that time based on this message?
Going to Meterborough Road.
Your response, I'm in Dover with Ian. Who was Ian and what were you doing with him in Dover?
Ian was a good friend of mine and we were drinking.
And with respect to timing, the first two at around 8:14 and the one where you're saying you're in Dover is closer to 11. So at some point in time, you left the house?
I did.
So this slide and subsequent slides go into the next day, which is Friday, January 27th. The ones on the screen are all time-stamped at 12:17 a.m. We first have the defendant to you up, and then the next three are you to the defendant. Yes, at the Irving, heading home. What is your text message to the defendant at the Irving a reference to?
The Irving in Farmington?
A gas station?
Yes.
The last text message on the screen, you to the defendant at 12:17, heading home. Where were you heading home from?
Dover.
And your reference to home, again, is that your place that you had with Cassie in Farmington?
It is.
The next text message exchange happens about a minute later, so 12:18 a.m. You to the defendant, you leaving the hill, and then the next two, the defendant to you, yup, I'll stop by, and then you to the defendant, cool. The defendant's text message to you, I'll stop by, highlighted in red. What did you take that to mean? The defendant
He was going to come by my house.
From the preceding two text message, you leaving the hill, yup, where was the defendant coming from to come to your house?
Meterborough Road. May I please get some more water?
Yeah.
Hi. Dynabro 420. I love it when you show up to chaperone.
The next series of text messages between the defendant and you occur about 15 minutes later. I'll read them and have follow-up questions. So we're starting at 12:33 a.m. You to the defendant, I'm home now. The defendant to you, leaving in 5. And the last two are you to the defendant. Can you pick me up something while there? I left there. What were you referring to when you asked the defendant to pick you up something while there? Pick up what and from where?
Drugs from me to Verrill Road.
Continuing with text messages between you and the defendant that early morning of January 27th. And it's going to be the first 3 text messages on the screen. The defendant to you, yup. Then the next 2 are you to the defendant. I know I will be up for 4 hours anyways, but will probably need to straighten up a butt and then bit. What were you referring to in your text message to the defendant about staying up 4 hours to straighten up?
I was asking for 4 ounces of methamphetamine.
You were asking for drugs to use?
I was.
After your last text message to the defendant, which is about 12:36 a.m. on Friday, January 27th, do you see the defendant at your house at 54 Central Street?
I do.
Do you remember about what time that was when the defendant was at your house on January 27th after that exchange of text messages that went past midnight?
I don't.
Is that a detail that reviewing your past testimony in this matter perhaps may refresh your recollection?
Yes, perhaps.
So I'll ask you to start at the top and to about line 18, but read as much as you want. If you want additional pages, let me know. And when you're done reading, look up.
Okay.
Reviewing that, does that refresh your recollection or does not?
It does.
About what time does the defendant arrive at your house that early morning of Friday the 27th?
1 o'clock. Around 1 o'clock.
About 1 o'clock.
Yeah. Yes.
When the defendant came to your house at about 1 o'clock, was he alone?
He was.
And by what means did he arrive at your house?
He drove.
And that's the dark SUV that we saw photos of before the lunch break?
Correct.
What do you remember happening at your house when the defendant arrived?
He was acting weird.
What do you remember about that?
He asked me if I knew who Jenna was. I remember, him asking me if I knew who Jenna was. I remember telling him I don't. He asked if I thought she was an informant. And I think I said, I don't know. And then, he was pretty worked up about it, so I suggested to him call Dean. So we called Dean.
The defendant comes to your house, asks about Jenna. Does he use the name Jenna?
He does.
When the defendant asked you if you thought Jenna might be an informant, what did you take the defendant to mean by informant?
Like if she worked for the cops.
And you described the defendant as worked up as he was talking about Jenna and the possibility that she might be an informant?
Yeah.
Objection. It's not what we testified to.
Overruled.
I don't believe he used those words.
Overruled.
Are those the words that you used? He appeared worked up?
He did. I did, yeah.
And when you say worked up, what do you mean by that? What do you recall about the defendant's behavior, demeanor, mannerisms?
He just seemed off. I can't really, I don't know. He just seemed off.
Had you ever seen the defendant acting like that before when you saw him that early Friday morning asking you about Jenna and whether you thought she was an informant?
I mean, I can't recall exactly if I'd seen him like that. I'd seen him acting off before, but I don't know if that particular, how he's acting.
And you remember giving sworn testimony in this case, right?
I do.
Counsel, page 568, beginning line 9. Question, so does
Yeah. Witness protection program.
the police informant. You tell him in substance, call Dean. Does the defendant call Dean from what you see?
He does.
And what do you remember hearing the defendant say during that call?
I remember him talking about Jenna and him mentioning not the Jenna down in Florida.
It's driving me crazy.
But I'll direct your attention to there. And I'm going to give you another page as well. So you start reading this, and I'll get you another page while you're reading. And I'll ask you to continue 573 to line 4.
Yep.
Reading that, does that jog your memory as to anything else you recall the defendant talking to Dean about during that early morning phone call?
Yes.
And what else do you remember?
He asked if he thought he should do something about it.
When you say he asked if he thought he should do something about it, who is the he you're talking about?
Tim asked Dean if he should do if Tim should do something about it.
Thank you. Looking at this chart, phone records indicate a call between the defendant's cell phone and Dean Schmrunk's cell phone, 1:34 a.m. on Friday, January 27th. It lasts only about 7 seconds, which is indicated by the red arrow. Up to this point, Mr. Caldwell, we've gone through various communications between you, the defendant, Dean Schmrunk, coupled with Christine Sullivan, using what I call regular telephone calls and text messages. But did the four of you also communicate by cell phone through other means as well?
We did.
How so?
We used different apps.
Can you give some examples, if you recall?
Signal, Confide.
And why would those apps be used instead of regular cell phone calls and text messages?
Because they're encrypted.
And what does that mean?
It keeps the records being seen by law enforcement.
The call between the defendant and Dean Schmrunk that you heard at your house that early morning of January 27th, do you know whether the defendant made that call through the cell phone itself or through an app that he and you and others used?
I have no idea.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's 2:30. We'll take our afternoon recess. We'll resume at 2:45 and then work until 4 o'clock.
Yeah, that was part of their, it's a very sophisticated code that they were using in order to, in order to communicate. Very sophisticated. Dynabro 420, you all, the bro pest. Look, it's gone off the chain. It's gone off the chain. But that's okay. I'm here for it. I like it. I love our chat. I love our chat. What are your bro-nouns? Bro and bruh. Bro. Megan. Thank you so much for this community. Happy 10 months. Love y'all. Love y'all. Let's see how long of a break they took. Coming back in looking like an Acura salesman. wonder if the house is powered by Broller panels. Beaufort County. Michelle Broconis. Bet he eats bromaine lettuce.
You gonna bring in the jury?
Aaron, have
Please
you
remain
checked with
standing.
Powered by propane. I say bro and bruh sometimes, like, but never to this extent. It's hilarious. I love it.
What did Dean say? And he said not to
Bros
worry about
too
it.
close.
Yeah.
And what else do you remember defendant, Mr. Verrill, talking about before he leaves?
He said that he was going to set up some cameras just to check on him.
Set up some cameras to check on who?
Christine and Jenna.
And how was the defendant going to set up cameras to spy on the women at the house?
So it's sustained. That was not his testimony.
How is he going to set up cameras to check up on the women inside the house?
He was going to use an app called Alfred.
And what generally is the Alfred app?
So if you have two different cell phones, you can set one up as a camera and you can set one up as a receiver.
And these were plans that the defendant was telling you that he was going to do once he left you?
Yes.
You talked about when you saw the defendant that morning, he was acting weird. You discussed some of your observations of him. What else do you remember about the defendant's demeanor when he was talking about his plans to go back to the house and to set up cameras to check up on the two women?
I don't understand the question.
Yep. The question is, what else do you remember about the defendant's demeanor, behavior, when he was talking about his plans to return to the house?
Just the same behavior that was before we discussed.
Do you remember anything else?
Not that I can recall.
And would reviewing a transcript of your former testimony possibly jog your memory as to that aspect?
Yes.
Counsel starting at page 576. Actually, 575. Line 24. So I'll ask you to start at line 24.
Okay.
Read through the rest of the other page. To about line 10 on 577. Okay. Same rules as before. Read as much as you want before then. After then, when you're done reading, look up swing.
Okay.
Bro fence is hungry.
Does that jog or refresh your memory as to any other aspects of the defendant's demeanor that early Friday morning?
It does.
How else was the defendant acting?
Aggressive.
He was acting aggressive while talking about his plans to return to the house to set up those cameras to check on the two women?
Correct.
And at some point after he discusses those plans with you, does the defendant actually leave your house?
He does.
And where was he going, based on his conversations with you?
To the Verrill house.
And what about you? Where do you go?
Nowhere.
So you stay at your house?
I do.
Moving ahead later that same morning of January 27th, did you see the defendant again at your house later that morning?
Yes. I don't recall if it was morning or afternoon.
And that was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
About when was it? About.
Around noon.
Who else was at your house at the time when the defendant returned later that Friday?
Cassie and Ian.
And Cassie being your girlfriend at the time and Ian being a friend at the time?
Yes.
What do you remember about your encounter with the defendant later on Friday, January 27th? And let's begin with where you were when you first saw the defendant. Where were you?
I was outside on my porch.
Were you expecting the defendant later that morning?
I was not.
Now, that being said, did the two of you, you and Mr. Verrill, have that kind of friendship where one could just stop by at the other's house and just hang out?
Yes.
But that morning,
Hold on, I want to pause for this. Get in the car says, I am now officially off the dead by date. Doctor at Duke took me off the terminal list to live life yesterday. Wow. Wow. I'm happy you're here. That's incredible.
the two of you did not make plans to meet that morning?
No, we did not.
Had you had any communication with the defendant by any means since your face-to-face conversation with him earlier that Friday morning when he expressed concern that an informant was at the house in Meterboro Road and left with plans to set up cameras to check on the two women at the house?
I had not.
Later on the 27th, how did the defendant arrive at your house? By what vehicle?
The SUV, the CRV.
And was the defendant alone when he arrived at your house in his car?
He was.
And what do you remember about what the defendant was wearing when you saw him at your house later on January 27th?
He was wearing a T-shirt, and I don't remember what his pants were.
Looking at still photos, this is State's Exhibit 30W. First, you recognize the person depicted in these stills?
I do.
When you saw the defendant at your house later on January 27th, he was not wearing a long-sleeve shirt like seen in these photos, but a T-shirt?
He was.
And with respect to the defendant wearing a T-shirt, what do you remember generally about the temperature outside that Friday morning when you saw the defendant?
It was really cold.
Also looking at these photos, Mr. Caldwell, the defendant appears to be wearing a hat. Do you remember whether or not the defendant was wearing a hat when you saw him that Friday?
I don't recall.
Fair enough. That being said, the hat that the defendant is wearing in these photos, does that hat look familiar to you?
It does.
And how so?
It's one of the hats that that he would wear. We got a sleeve of these hats, and he would take a hat out of that and he would draw on them and wear them.
And what color hat would that be?
White.
So what do you remember happening when the defendant pulled into your driveway later on January 27th? He's alone in his car, he's dressed in a T-shirt, although it's freezing him. What do you remember happening?
Him coming into my house, asking me for a pair of pants.
Do you remember the defendant saying anything to you as he walks into your house?
Something like interesting night.
That's the defendant saying words to the effect of interesting night as he's walking into your house?
To that effect.
When the defendant walked into your house, did you see him with Cassie, your girlfriend at the time?
Yes.
Soon after the defendant had some interactions with Cassie, did Cassie leave the house?
She left, yes.
Remember what she was doing at the time?
I think she was going to the gym. I don't recall.
What do you remember happening after Cassie leaves the house?
We went into the house.
And when you say we went into the house, that's the defendant and you?
Yes.
And I believe you testified before about some pants?
Yes.
What about the pants?
He asked me for a pair of pants.
The defendant asked you for a pair of pants?
Correct.
Was he wearing pants at the time?
He was.
So he asked you for a pair of pants after saying interesting night. What do you do?
I went and got him a pair of pants.
And what's he do?
He headed down to my basement.
Does he do anything with the pants?
Yeah, I give him the pants and he takes off his pants and puts those ones on.
Do you remember what happened to the pants that he was wearing?
They were just sitting on the floor.
Do you notice anything about the defendant when you were interacting with him smell-wise?
Yeah, he smelled like B.O.
Did you ask the defendant why he wanted to borrow a pair of pants and why he was changing into a new pair of pants?
I didn't.
Why not?
I just didn't.
Was that strange?
I don't know. Like if any of my friends ask me for clothes, I'm going to give them clothes. But it's reciprocating, right? If I needed a hoodie, somebody would give me a hoodie.
What else do you remember happening inside the house after you get the defendant a pair of pants and he's Which his pants?
I remember him taking a couple shots of Jameson. He was smoking a joint. And just acting strange.
And what do you mean by acting strange?
He just was, just acting weird. I don't know.
I know it's maybe difficult for you to put it into words. You talked before about the early morning Friday, January 27th encounter that you had with him and tried to describe his demeanor, how it seemed stranger than you'd ever seen him before. Was it similar later in the morning?
Yeah,
Were you talking with the defendant while inside your house?
I was.
What do you remember about conversations that you had with him?
Just, I don't remember the specifics of the conversation. I just remember saying to him, man, if you did something up there, Dean's gonna be pissed. And then he looked at me and said, really? And that's when I was like, I'm out. And I just walked outside.
And what do you mean at that point, I'm out, I'm outside?
Like I wasn't part of this conversation.
Why?
Because I didn't know and I didn't want to be implicated.
How are you feeling at this point?
Uncomfortable.
Soon after you left the defendant inside in your house, did he join you outside?
Yes.
And what do you remember happening outside?
He just, I believe he gave me a hug and he just said, and then he left. And he said, I gotta go tie up some loose ends.
Defendant, Mr. Verrill, said words to the effect that he needed to tie up loose ends?
Correct.
Did you ask him what he meant by that?
No.
Again, was that a question that you wanted to ask at the time?
No.
What about the pants? Were the pants still there?
No.
The pants that he had taken
No,
off?
he grabbed the pants and took off with them.
Did the defendant leave in his car saying after he said he needed to tie up loose ends?
Yes.
Did you ever speak to the defendant again after he left that morning wearing a T-shirt, a new pair of pants, and saying that he needed to tie up loose ends?
No.
Was that the last time when you saw the defendant outside of court appearances?
Yes.
So you just recounted interactions that you had with the defendant that morning of the January 27th. Again, how did you feel about those interactions?
Uncomfortable.
Did you do anything at the time, such as check out the house, call the police?
No, I didn't call the police. I got a hold of Dean.
What about check the house out?
So so I drove, not inside, I drove by the house at one point because I went to the hardware store and I saw.
So Mr. Cole, let me cut you off there because we will get to that.
Okay.
But I mean, when the defendant is at your house, he's wearing only a T-shirt, even though it's freezing out. He's smelling a body odor. He asks for a pair of pants, swaps into a new pair of pants, talks about how he had an interesting night, and then says he needs to go tie up loose ends. At that point, why didn't you call the police? Why didn't you check out the house?
To be completely honest, because I didn't want to call the police. I was selling drugs and I was in a motorcycle club. If I didn't call the police, right? And
you didn't want to get involved.
Yeah.
That's a failure on your part, right? How do you feel about that now?
Horrible.
What did you do at your house after the defendant left, talking about having to tie up some loose ends?
Can I?
Just 5 minutes. All right, folks, we'll just retire to the deliberation room. You don't need to go all the way back to the assembly room. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Motorcycle club. I tell you what, the press conference stuff, like that stuff made my stomach physically hurt and made me feel sick. And I was sitting here feeling sick, and y'all are the best. You know, this is why it's great to watch this kind of stuff with our community, because we can, you know, laugh at the ridiculous and then respect the sad and get through it together. I love y'all. It's a side bro. Rehab program. He needed a bromant. Yep. into real life. Thank you. Congratulations to you. To you. No bro obituary for us. We're survivors. Yes, our bromunity.
All right, you may resume. So, Mr. Cole, if you recall one of the many text messages before the lunch break, there was a text message in which you were discussing you had a damaged door that you needed to repair. Do you recall that?
I do.
After the defendant left that late morning, around noontime, January 27th, did you return to that chore of fixing or trying to fix the door?
I did.
At some point during that chore, did you leave the house?
I did.
And for what purpose?
To grab a hinge.
Grab a hinge?
A hinge.
And where did you go generally to get that?
Home Depot.
And who did you see as you drove to the Home Depot?
Saw Tim driving past us.
And as the defendant was driving past you, would that be towards or away from Meterboro Road that he was driving?
He was driving towards.
After you went to Home Depot, where did you go?
I went home.
Did you stop by or drive by the Meterboro Road house first?
I did.
And did you actually drive into the house or just drive by?
I just drove by.
And what did you see outside the house as you drove by?
I saw Tim's car parked there.
Why did you drive to the house and not enter the driveway to see what was going on with the defendant?
Again, didn't want anything to do
More
with
the
it.
same before we took a break?
Yes.
Where did you go after you drove by the Meterboro Road house and saw the defendant's car parked there?
Back to my house.
Ultimately, did you attempt to contact Dean Smoronk?
I did.
So let's return to the cell phone communications chart, States Exhibit 17. We're now on to communications on the afternoon of Friday, January 27th, between you and Dean Smoronk. Let me read them and I'll have some follow-up questions. The first two are text messages, you to Dean Smoronk. Join me on Confide so we can chat confidentially with encrypted and disappearing messages. And then it has a web address. Need to speak soon. These text messages begin at 3:30 p.m. And then Dean Smoronk has an auto reply from his cell phone. And then you follow up with a text message at 3:52 p.m. Very soon, bro. If you can explain that first text message that you sent,
That's
the Confide and the web address.
Yeah, it's an app.
And again, what is the Confide app?
It's an app where you read the text messages, it's encrypted, and then you got to scroll on it to be able to read it, and then the message disappears.
Why did you want to communicate with Dean Smoronk on Confide rather than regular cell phone text messages or calls like the many that you had exchanged with Dean Smoronk up to that point that we reviewed?
In all honesty, I didn't want to get pulled into something like this. And I really just wasn't thinking.
About 38 minutes after you sent that Confide invitation, you followed up with the text message, need to speak soon, and then a couple minutes later, very soon. What did you want to speak to Dean Smoronk about? What was so urgent to you?
Talking about Tim and all of that.
And all that being, do you know what happened at the house?
I don't.
Leading, he needs to ask the question now.
No, the question wasn't leading. You can go ahead.
The last text was sent at 3:52 p.m. The next series begins about a half an hour later. Dean Smoronk to you, do I have a couple minutes? Then you to Dean, yes, but please on Confide. Dean Smoronk to you, how bad is the news? You to Dean Smoronk, 10, and then Dean Smoronk to you, boy. Whoops, excuse me. Your response to Dean Smorank's inquiry about how bad the news was, 10. What did you mean by 10?
Just, I need to talk to you now. Like, it's an urgent matter.
What was the news that you planned to share with Dean Smoronk?
That I think that Tim did something stupid up at the house.
And what was that based on? That you
Just the
believe-
way he was acting.
The way that the defendant, Tim Verrill, was acting?
Yes.
So that last text message was sent by Dean Smoronk to you at 4:22 p.m., going on to additional communications. We have first 2 attempted calls, Dean Smoronk to you, and then we have you a text message to Dean Smoronk, I don't want to talk over the phone, bro. and then a text message, Dean Smoronk to you. Dean Smoronk just sent you a confidential message with Confide. View your message here, and then it has a web address. As to the first two entries on the screen, Dean Smorank's cell phone tries to contact your cell phone. Do you remember? Did you pick up the calls?
I don't remember.
And you do send a text message, I don't want to talk over the phone, bro. Based on that text message, would you have picked up calls?
Probably not.
And why not?
Because I thought that the calls could be recorded and then could be used in court.
Soon after you say, in substance, you don't want to talk over the phone, and Dean Smoronk gives you a confidential message invite, do you have a text conversation with Dean Smoronk using Confide?
I do.
And what, if anything, do you remember about that conversation by text message with Dean Smoronk?
Just telling him to get up here. He needed to get up here and check on his house.
That same day, January 27th, did you see the defendant again after that encounter at your house where he borrowed a pair of your pants, was wearing a T-shirt, smelling a body odor, and left saying that he needed to tie up loose ends? Did you see the defendant again that day?
On that date, no.
Did you have any communication with the defendant after that by call or by text message?
No.
Do you remember having any further communications with Dean Smoronk that day after the Confide communications between him and you? If you remember.
I don't remember.
Let's go to Saturday, January 28th. Did you see Mr. Verrill, the defendant, that day?
I did not.
Did you have any contacts with the defendant that day?
I did not.
Going on to a series of cell phone communications between you and Dean Smoronk on that Saturday. They begin at 11:35 p.m. Dean Smoronk to you. It's a forwarded text message, Tim's new number. And then you have a call to Dean Smoronk, which lasts about 23 seconds. The last three text messages, again, are different conversants, so I'm not going to ask you about those. As to the first text message, you being forwarded Tim's new number, that was a reference to the defendant?
Correct.
Had you known that the defendant had changed his cell phone number from the one that he had used with you just the day before in those many text message conversations that we went over?
I did not.
Had the defendant had any communication with you beforehand indicating that he was changing his cell phone number, getting a new phone?
No.
The last text message from, I'm sorry, this last one is between the two of you.
Yep.
The last text message, Dean Smoronk to you, and I believe that's 11:59 p.m. on Saturday, January 28th. I'll be right there. What's that a reference to?
Picking him up at the airport.
And had you arranged with Dean Smoronk to pick him up at the airport?
I did.
And what airport would that be?
Logan.
And about when did you pick Dean Smoronk up at the airport? About?
Around midnight.
And when you picked Dean Smoronk up at the airport in Boston at around midnight, were you with anyone?
I was.
And who were you with?
I was with Cassie.
Where did the three of you go? You, Cassie, and Dean Smoronk after you pick up Dean Smoronk at the airport?
Back to my house.
Given Cassie's presence in the vehicle, were you talking to Dean Smoronk about your concerns about the defendant and the women at Meterboro Road?
No.
Why not?
Because he just didn't talk around women about stuff, and I didn't know if she'd go talk to the cops. That sounds horrible, I know, but.
And again, where did the three of you go initially from the airport?
To my house, our house, Cassie and I's.
Do you pick up anything when you go to the house?
I do.
And what do you pick up?
My firearm.
And why did you pick up your firearm?
Because I didn't know what I was going to be walking into at the house.
And when you say I didn't know what I was walking into at the house, that's the Meterboro Road?
Correct.
Had you and Dean planned to go to Meterboro Road after dropping off Cassie?
Correct.
About how long of a car ride is it from 54 Central Street, where you and Cassie were living, to the Meterboro Road residence? About?
5-10 minutes.
About what time do you and Dean Smoronk get to the Meterboro Road residence? About?
1-ish, maybe a little bit later.
And this would be on Sunday, January 29th, right?
That's correct.
And what do you remember happening when you and Dean arrive at the house?
I remember we pulling up to the house. I parked the truck. We went into the house. And he had, when I got in, he went in first. I went in behind him. And he was standing at like a panel. I remember that. And he was saying something about.
Well, can't go into what he was saying, but what was he looking at?
He was looking at a panel.
Okay. With respect to how you and Dean Smoronk entered the house, is it the door that we've seen before?
It is.
Looking at a photo from State's Exhibit 32A, the jurors are going to see more of this from another witness. That morning, did you go out into that enclosed three-season porch that I'm indicating with the laser pointer?
Did I what?
Do you recall if you went out to this area when
I did
you went
not.
to the house that morning? To the right, as one looks off to the right, there's a detached garage. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Did you notice anything different about that garage when you got there that early Sunday morning?
I did.
And what did you notice different about the garage?
That the windows in the garage were spray painted.
From your previous times at the address, had the garage windows ever been painted over?
No.
When you and Dean Schmeronk initially were inside the house, were the lights working? If you remember.
Downstairs, yes. Upstairs, no.
Does Dean Schmeronk do anything with respect to the lights that weren't working upstairs?
Yeah, he ran back downstairs and flipped the panel.
So at least part of the power was turned off. You talked before the lunch break about there were surveillance cameras at the house.
Yeah.
Was the surveillance system working?
I don't know.
Turning to some other still photos, State's Exhibit 30Z. And you've seen the clip from which these videos were taken?
I have.
And who is the person in blue or purple?
That's Dean.
About how long were you at the house on Meterboro Road with Dean Schmeronk before you left that early Sunday morning? About
15 minutes?
When you left the house, did Dean Schmeronk leave with you?
No.
When you left the house, did Dean Schmeronk give you anything to take with you?
He did.
And what did you take with you that was given to you by Dean Schmeronk?
Drugs.
And when we talk about drugs, what are we talking about? What did Dean Schmeronk give you that you remember?
Cocaine, methamphetamine.
And why did Dean Schmeronk give you these drugs to take from the house?
Because he was going to call the cops.
Let's go to why the police were being called out to the house. So you and Dean Schmeronk arrive, you enter the house, power is turned on to the entire house. What happened inside the house once the power had been turned on?
We were searching the house, looking around, and he had walked into a bedroom, and I heard him say, "Oh shit," or something along those lines, and so I looked, and
before we get to what you saw in the bedroom, do you remember anything about the carpeting upstairs?
I remember it looked like it was just cleaned. Like I believe what it was. Yeah, I recall thinking that it was just cleaned.
You heard Dean say something around something like shit or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
And that was in the upstairs bedroom?
That was.
So State's Exhibit 32N, did you look inside the bedroom?
I did.
And I need you to look. Is this what you saw, blood on a bare mattress?
Yes.
What was your reaction, Mr. Caldwell, to seeing the blood on the bed?
In reality, scared.
And what did you do at that point?
I told Dean to call the cops, and I was getting out of there.
And again, why did you leave the house after seeing this bloody mattress?
Because I didn't want to be there when the cops showed up.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, sir. Can I ask for a 52-minute break?
All right, folks, once again, just go into the assembly room, the deliberation room right here. We'll be back in about 2 or 3 minutes.
This is why I love speed trialing. Your favorite Broder vehicle? Yes, that is the new poll.
So like the
Autobro-ville.
state said at the beginning of your testimony, it's been about 7 years since
Yeah, he's a
this
big
happened. And you've given quite a few statements between then and now, right?
Yeah.
A lot of time has passed, right? And as you said on direct, there might be things that you forget. You might need your memory refreshed from time to time. This is also not your first time testifying under oath about these murders.
Correct.
You've done it twice before, actually.
Twice before?
There was a grand jury that you testified in front of.
yes.
Right? And you're under oath there, too.
Correct.
A little bit of a different setting, right? There was no defense attorneys there.
Correct.
And then, of course, at the prior trial.
Correct.
And there are other times that you spoke to the police during the investigation.
Correct.
The judge and the state reviewed with you also at the beginning your immunity letter.
Correct.
Correct. And that immunity letter and the immunity protections were in place at the time of the last trial, correct?
Correct.
And you've since resolved that case, as the state said, in federal court?
Correct.
And those were 2 convictions involving the sale of methamphetamine?
Correct.
And the date of those offenses were in November of 2017?
No, I don't. think so.
If I showed you a document from your court case, would that refresh
Yeah,
your
please.
recollection? May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
It says 2017.
Okay. And for the record, this is a document from the U.S. District Court listing the charges and the
Correct.
information related to it. And you pleaded guilty to those charges around 2019, or excuse me, 2021?
Can I see that again, please? I don't think it was 2017. I know it says 2017, but I don't, it was 2018, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Do you think that you were arrested in 2018?
Yeah, yes, I was, yeah.
And you pleaded guilty in 2021?
I did.
Your sentence entailed 1 day in jail
Less than.
and 1 year of probation?
It was called supervised
Supervised
release.
release, correct. Now, in regards to this investigation, throughout the course of this, during any time, the police never took DNA samples from you?
Correct.
They never took your fingerprints?
Correct.
They never took palm prints?
Correct.
They never took your phone?
Correct.
And I think at this time you actually had 2 phones.
I believe so.
But regardless, they didn't take any of your phones.
Correct.
They never even looked at them.
Yeah, I don't think so.
They never searched your apartment or your home.
They did not.
They never searched your car.
They did not.
And they never executed a body warrant, which is they didn't take any pictures of your body.
Correct.
And overall, just didn't do any searches of your property or your body.
Not that I can recall.
I think it's been well established already that you have a background involving drug abuse, right?
Drug use, yes.
And you've been sober for how many years now?
Years 5.
It's a long time.
Yep.
You should be proud of yourself.
Thank you.
And you're now working with people in the recovery community.
I am.
Good for him.
Fair to say you're a much different person than you were before.
Fair.
And in this community, you've found a sense of belonging or a sense of community.
I would say, yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you met Tim a while back through mutual friends, or was that how you reconnected?
Both.
Okay. When did you meet the first time?
Where?
When?
Oh, I don't recall.
Okay. Do you have a date range?
I don't.
Okay. And you said you reconnected maybe in late summer, early fall of 2016?
I don't know if it was 2016. Yes, 2016, yes. Sorry.
Like we said,
that paper threw me off, to be honest.
It's been a while, okay. You can put that paper behind you. You always knew Tim is kind of a nerd?
Yeah, I mean, in the kindest way possible.
Right, okay. Right, I think you've also said that he's someone who is always smiling.
I have.
You knew him as someone who wasn't violent?
Yes.
He wasn't really an aggressive person?
What was that?
He wasn't really an aggressive person?
Right.
And you knew him to be kind and gentle?
Correct.
You also knew that Tim didn't really, or did not have any issues with Christine?
Do I think, what was that?
Tim didn't have any animosity toward Christine?
He did.
You met you met Christine and Dean through Tim, right?
Correct.
And that was in the fall of 2016?
Yes, it's somewhere around there.
Okay. And you initially started working for Dean as his debt collector?
Correct.
And you knew that by bringing you into the fold, Tim earned a commission from Dean?
No, I didn't. What do you mean?
Not aware of that?
That he earned a commission?
Yeah.
I knew, like, I didn't know what their agreement was, if that's what.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying you did not know, you do not know that he earned a commission for bringing you into the fold?
I did not. I don't recall that.
Okay, that's fine. If you don't recall, that's. But you testified on direct that you started working for Dean as his debt collector, right?
I did.
And you testified that you did that a few times.
I did.
That you acted in that role.
I did.
And a few times meant more than once.
Correct.
I think on direct it said, or the state said, gave the number 10 and you said below 10.
Yes.
So somewhere between 1 and 9 times you acted as an enforcer.
Yeah, between 1 and 9, yeah.
Okay. Now, as we established, you testified previously under oath, correct?
Correct.
At a prior trial. And at that time you had the same coverage of immunity as you have this time?
I believe so, yeah.
You were sworn in the same way?
Yes.
As you were last time? Also in front of a jury?
Correct.
So I'm directing you to a transcript of your testimony. There's a question starting there. Did you ever actually do that, meaning ever actually assist Mr. Smarrock in helping collect drug debts? And you said no. Correct?
I said that, but I must have misheard. I've never intentionally lied. Like I didn't, so I guess the best way to explain, can I explain that?
I'm going to go further into the transcript because that might.
Okay. I think I know why I said no.
Okay. I'll begin at the about two questions before that. Is that why Tim introduced you to Dean? He introduced me because Dean was looking for help to collect money for people that owed him debt for drugs. Okay. And Dean or the defendant thought you could be somebody to help with that. I said, that's correct. And that's something you agreed to do. That is. Did you actually ever do that? This is the part we just read.
Yep.
Did you ever actually do that? Meaning ever actually assist Mr. Smarrock in helping collect drug debts? And you say no. Did you ever actually have a conversation with him, with anybody about collecting on a debt along with Mr. Smarrock, and you say yes?
Yes.
And then that goes into a time in which you joined Dean in Florida.
Yes.
In that role.
So what I was saying before?
I'm sorry, I haven't asked a question yet. When you went down to Florida, you were acting in the role of a debt collector for Dean.
Correct.
And on that trip, you actually acted in that role.
I did.
And at the last trial, you denied acting in that role on that trip.
That's taken out of context. I said afterwards that I did. What I was saying before was I had never actually collected any money. I can see your computer. Yep.
Wonder what is on his computer. Facebook brotification. It's okay. It's okay, dude. Bro Crime Ranch. Lucy snoring again. Bros of Anarchy. I think he's more of like a entertainment guy, not a TV guy, like Cirque de Brole. How are we still doing this? How are we?
So I want to make sure that I get this part right, which is why I'm taking some time. So I appreciate your patience. All right, so you just testified that you actually weren't involved in the taking of the money. Is that what you were saying?
No. What I was saying is I don't remember ever a time where I actually collected the money. Like, I went there to collect the money, but no transaction was ever made. Like, money, I don't remember a time where money was ever handed over.
And you're saying that's what happened that time in Florida?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
What?
You don't remember any money being exchanged, or?
I don't remember.
Okay. So it's possible money was exchanged?
I don't think there was. I don't remember.
Okay. And this happened more than once, up to 9 times?
No, not.
He's trying to trip him up, and he's getting frustrated.
Can you repeat the question?
Did you act in that role between 1 and 9 times?
I believe so, yes.
And the last time you said you never actually assisted Dean in collecting drug money.
I said I don't remember ever getting money. I don't recall.
Wait, Brooke, Your Honor.
Yes.
Counsel, could I come to page one? Sorry, it's still 507. Yeah, just to be clear, these are not my words. Did you ever actually do that? Meaning ever actually assist Mr. Sprunk in helping to collect drug debts? And you say no.
But the question after that,
Did you ever have a conversation with him about collecting on debt with Mr. Sprunk? And you say yes.
okay, so I misspoke. Was not an intentional lie, I promise.
And you certainly said nothing about doing it a few times or up to 9 times.
What do you mean?
There was no mention in your prior testimony about acting in that role more than 1 time or up to 9 times.
And before or today?
Before, when you were under oath at the last trial.
I don't remember.
See, if he, remember he has immunity for all of his like drug transgressions and stuff like that, and you know anything that he knew before the police were called or whatever. Like, you know, he wasn't involved in the murder, obviously, but he was like doing some sketchy stuff beforehand. So if he is if they say that he is lying under oath, or if he perjures himself, then they can take away his immunity. So right now, this attorney that's like going over the specifics of these questions and stuff, and like he's getting frustrated because they could, like, if he tries to prove that he lied as opposed to, and every time he tries to like explain what he's saying, he's like no, because he wants to stick with the specifics. And that, like, I can understand why he's getting frustrated. If you're thinking, like, you know, if you're up here trying to be honest and they're trying to catch you in, you know, specificities and then won't let you explain, like, I'd be scared.
And the time you went down there, that was in November of 2017.
Down where?
When you went down to Florida on that role.
I don't recall.
Okay. But you remember that it was just you and Dean at that time?
I don't recall.
Okay. There was a second time that you went down to Florida, right?
Correct.
That was in December?
I don't recall when it was.
Okay. But it was after the time you went down with you?
Yes.
Okay. That time was different. That time was a vacation.
Correct.
Okay. Your girlfriend was invited that time?
Yes.
And Christine was also down there?
Correct.
So the four of you hung out together?
Correct.
Where did you guys stay on that trip?
In their house, down there.
Yeah, impeach the witness.
Now, you testified a little bit to this on direct that you started to fill in when Tim was missing delivery appointments.
I did.
Right. So you were starting to take over some of his customers.
No, not some of them. One of them.
One of them. And that was the one customer who we heard the text messages between you two.
Correct.
And he reached directly out to you.
Who reached out directly to me?
That individual.
Yes.
I believe you called him Kurt. I believe you called him Kurt.
No, that's a whole different situation.
Okay, that's a different situation.
Yeah.
We will get to that. Was this person's name Rob?
Yes.
So Rob reached out to you saying that Tim had missed an appointment.
Yes.
Rob was not happy about that.
He was upset, yes.
And you were going to solve the problem. Well, let me just say it this way. You reached out to Tim about it.
Reach out to who about
To
it?
Tim.
Yes.
And you also reported the issue to Dean.
Yes.
And you told Rob that you would handle it.
Yes.
Now, we also heard on direct that you wouldn't really deal with Christine that much.
Correct.
And in fact, the only communication we have for late January, from the 21st to the 29th, what we saw on the screen, is the one time you tried to reach Christine when you were at the bank and inadvertently reached Jenna instead.
What we saw, yeah.
There are no other communications between you two.
With her and I?
Correct.
Before?
On that, what the exhibit that we have that is, for your knowledge, entered as a full exhibit.
It's what I can recall.
Okay. You said you didn't really have the type of relationship where you two would communicate directly over the phone? Or through the phone?
We talked over the phone sometimes, yeah.
Okay. So on direct, when you said you didn't really have that type of relationship where you'd be in contact through the phone, is that not totally correct?
I don't know. Like, we didn't talk as often as, like, Dean and I, and Tim and I.
So your relationship didn't involve one where you would text each other occasionally or call each other occasionally?
Yeah, occasionally, yeah.
Now, when you were concerned about Christine the weekend of the murders, you didn't text her?
No.
You didn't call her?
Not that I can recall.
what's been marked as State's Exhibit 17. Now, as the jurors know, there are quite a few text messages in here. Not all of them involve you. But yours are designated with JC, as we saw on the screen. Okay. These also reflect phone calls. This is a full record.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to, this is the beginning of Friday, January 27th. Okay, and we'll orient you toward the beginning of the early morning, or I'll say mid-morning. And we'll find the first one where we'll start at 10. Let's start here. 12:36 in the morning. That's a text message from you to Tim, Friday, January 27th. Now, when you flip through this until you reached late Saturday, and look for your name and see if there's any corresponding message to Christine. Phone call.
Yeah, it was 2017 is when the murders happened. And then the first trial was in 2019. And it was a mistrial because of information not being discovery not being turned over.
All right, council, it's 4 o'clock. We're going to suspend for the day. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll return tomorrow morning to begin at 10 a.m.
Perfect timing.
Just the best you can. Try to be here a few minutes before 10 o'clock, and we'll try to start on time. All right, thank you. Please leave your notebooks behind.
Y'all, we caught up at exactly like 12 seconds before it caught up to real time. That was perfect timing. We're pretty good with that, huh? So today we had a day. Boy, did we ever have a day. Tomorrow is Friday. Oh, the description for the case, since I ended up changing this stream that we're doing right now from the press conference, I didn't put the description in this one, but I'll add it. It's in the one from this morning, though, that we did of the first couple of days. But the only thing that they had released, like if you didn't watch it live, the only thing that they had released were the openings, and then the one guy that had the that was the video dude. Hold on, look at look how pretty. They got the banana boat out there about to take people out. So I'll add it anyway. I think I have OneDrive. I'm pretty sure. I have to go to the library and the post office and the store and rest my eyeballs because I've been looking at the screen since 1:00 this morning. And when I get back from doing all of that and to get some more work done, then I will double check. So it'll be about an hour and a half. Oh. And I'll double check. Tomorrow, since it's live now, and the speed trialing is working so well, so incredibly, and we love it so much. And I have so much else to get done this week. And I had so much to get done this week, and it's already Friday tomorrow. Time is not on my side. I can't even say it. But I will start the stream. I gotta try to get some more of the podcast done tomorrow. Because I've got to finish it by this weekend. So I will start the stream later. And we'll speed trial through it. So maybe we'll start that. What time did it start this morning? Wasn't it like 9 my time, I think? So maybe we'll start at like 12-ish? 11:30-ish? Something like that. Sound good? That should give me time to get some stuff done in the morning. And then we can speed trial through the rest of the day. Let's shoot for noon. That gives me the morning to get... I've got so much I need to get done. And I haven't slept in a couple nights, so I would like to get some sleep tonight. And then work tomorrow. That'll be the plan. Sound good? We will start the... That's 12 my time. And I'm Central, so 12 my time, 1 Eastern. And then watch that. I'm going to do a members only stream again on Sunday. I'm rotating the times around on those because I know that everybody's in different time zones, and so I want to kind of like rotate it around a little bit so that everybody gets to come in and hang out for about an hour, hour and a half, however long. So I'll do that Sunday, and I'm not sure about what time on that yet. No stream Saturday. I've got to finish the podcast Saturday. So that is our agenda for the rest of the week. We got a lot to do. I appreciate y'all coming in today, hanging out. Look at little Miss Needy down here. I'll take you out in a minute. We gotta go run errands. I appreciate y'all hanging out. Y'all made today. I tell you, social media is relentless, and people are notorious for being a-holes. So I really needed this. I appreciate the time I get to hang out with y'all watching trials. So yes. And congratulations to all of our new members. Thank you to everybody. Please hit like on your way out. I will see you tomorrow. And broskies, yes. I love how like everybody's got their names now with the bro on it. So funny. Yeah, our mods are the best. All right, y'all. I appreciate you. I will see you tomorrow at 12 my time, 1 Eastern. Bye, bro.
Yeah, I gotta go. I can't stick around here forever.
Everybody was wonderful. Everybody behaved. Everybody's always so nice to me.
Just love your channel and
Good morning.
Goodbye, good people. Now, how the heck do I get out of here?